The galaxy's mockery. The Galactic Council was a vast organization, consisting of some of the most powerful and advanced species the universe had ever known. They ruled with absolute control, their fleets of warships ready to crush any opposition. And yet, when they first heard about Earth, they laughed. Humans were a primitive species, weak and fragile compared to the mighty races of the galaxy. The council members could hardly contain their amusement. "You mean to tell me that the humans, that tiny speck of a planet, think they can stand up to us?" mocked Kilar, the towering leader of the Ygzal, a race known for their brutal strength. His deep voice echoed through the halls, sending waves of laughter through the room. He wasn't alone. The others joined in, their alien voices merging into a chorus of disbelief. From the moment Earth entered the Council's gaze, they had been the subject of ridicule. To the other species, the humans were nothing more than a curiosity, a species that had only recently begun to explore space, barely able to handle their own planet, let alone challenge the might of the galactic superpowers. The Council's leaders were seated in a grand circular chamber, the very walls lined with holographic projections of far-off galaxies. Alien species from every corner of the universe gathered there, their eyes glowing with intelligence, their minds calculating the fate of countless worlds. But all of that focus shifted to one insignificant planet, Earth. One by one, they spoke, dismissing Earth's potential. "Their weapons are primitive," said Lord Karak of the Krayaks, his reptilian face sneering in disdain. "They have nothing that could ever harm us." "They still fight with swords and guns," said Vira, the crystalline being who represented the Solar, another powerful species. "It's laughable. How could they possibly pose a threat to us?" Despite the mocking, a silence began to settle over the council as Kara Thompson, a human representative from Earth, prepared to speak. Her figure was small compared to the towering beings around her, and the disdainful glances from the other representatives were almost unbearable. Yet, Kara stood tall, unshaken, her eyes steady as she prepared to speak for her people. Kara was the only human in the room, and she knew the odds were against her. She had heard the ridicule, felt the weight of the disbelief, but she also understood something that the galaxy's greatest minds had missed: the sheer resilience of humanity. With a calm voice that carried through the vast hall, Kara began to speak. "I understand your laughter. I know you see us as weak and insignificant. But I ask you to listen for a moment. Humanity has something that none of you have." Her word hung in the air, carrying a weight that the others could not ignore. The laughter slowly faded, and the room grew quieter. The alien leaders exchanged confused glances. What was this human saying? What did she mean by something none of them have? There was a shift in the atmosphere, something they couldn't quite place. "You see," Kara continued, "the human race has faced extinction more times than any of you can imagine. We've fought wars, we've lost battles, but we've never stopped fighting. We've rebuilt our civilizations from the ground up, and each time we come back stronger. We are survivors." Her voice grew more powerful as she spoke, a quiet intensity emerging that contrasted sharply with the mocking tone of the others. Kara spoke of Earth's struggles, wars, famine, and the collapse of great nations. Yet each time, humanity found a way to rebuild, to grow, and to evolve. She spoke of their determination, their ability to adapt, and the strength they drew from their unity. The council had heard of human history, of course, but hearing it from one human was different. The words had an edge to them, an unspoken promise. This was no ordinary species. This was a people that had faced unimaginable odds and still stood. And for the first time, the leaders of the Galactic Council began to wonder if perhaps they had underestimated Earth. But despite Kara's words, doubt lingered in the air. The aliens still saw humans as primitive. Their technology, although impressive, was nothing compared to the galactic fleets and the advanced weapons that the Council wielded. They had seen the destruction of entire planets, the collapse of civilizations far older and stronger than Earth's. In their minds, the humans were nothing more than a fleeting curiosity. They could never challenge the might of the Council. Yet, Kara remained unfazed. She had expected this reaction. But she also knew that humanity had something that the galaxy didn't understand. A fire that could never be extinguished. With a calm but firm voice, she added, "You've seen our weapons, you've seen our ships. But what you don't see is what lies beneath it all. What you don't understand is that we are willing to fight for what we believe in. That is something you will never comprehend." The room remained silent. The Council's laughter had ceased, replaced by an uneasy tension. The leaders still didn't believe that humanity could pose any real threat to their power, but something had shifted. There was something about Kara's words, her unwavering confidence, that made them pause. Could it be possible that Earth had something to offer after all? Could humanity be more than just a footnote in the galactic story? Kara's words had planted the first seed of doubt in the minds of the Council. It would take time for the full realization to sink in, but that moment of silence marked the beginning of something new. A change in the perception of humanity. And as the Council deliberated in the following days, one thing became clear. Earth was no longer just a speck in the galaxy. It was a force to be reckoned with. For now, though, the Council could only wait. They had underestimated humanity, and they would soon discover that mocking Earth had been their greatest mistake. The atmosphere in the Galactic Council's chambers had shifted. What was once a room filled with laughter and mockery was now heavy with silence and uncertainty. The alien leaders, who had once looked down on humanity as a minor, insignificant species, began to question their assumptions. Yet, despite this subtle shift, no one dared to speak outright about their growing unease. The laughter had been silenced, but so had the confidence that had once been so strong. Kara Thompson, the lone human in the room, could feel the tension hanging in the air as she stood among the galaxy's most powerful beings. She had never expected to win them over with just words. Her speech was only the beginning. She had hoped that her words would plant a seed of doubt in their minds, and now she waited for the next steps. But she knew that it was not just her speech that would change things. It was the actions that humanity would take next that would prove their strength. After the Council session ended, Kara was escorted back to the human section of the massive galactic station. Her mind raced with thoughts of the next move. She had made an impact, that much was clear, but she also knew that the galaxy's leaders would not simply back down. They had far more resources, far more power than Earth. To challenge them, humanity would have to do something extraordinary. Back on Earth, the situation was even more dire. The alien fleets, numbering in the thousands, had positioned themselves around Earth's orbit, their ships towering above the planet like ominous shadows. The Galactic Council had decided that humanity's audacity must be crushed, and they were not going to wait long to do it. Their overwhelming strength would be the final word, and the fate of Earth seemed sealed. However, unbeknownst to the Council, something had begun to stir on Earth. Kara's words had inspired her fellow humans, igniting a fire that had been dormant for centuries. The idea that humans were weak and incapable of resisting the power of the galaxy was a misconception that they were now determined to prove wrong. The world's military forces, once divided and fractured, began to unite. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, designing and constructing new technologies that would rival the greatest the galaxy had ever known. As the days passed, Earth's resistance began to take shape. Humanity was resourceful. They adapted quickly, and the efforts of thousands of people began to bear fruit. The first new ships were launched, sleek and faster than anything previously seen by the aliens. The weapons they carried were not as advanced as the Council's, but they were dangerous in the hands of those who had fought to survive countless times before. What the humans lacked in technology, they made up for in determination and ingenuity. Kara had spent weeks coordinating with the leaders of Earth's most powerful nations, guiding them to unite for a common cause. At first, there was doubt. But after hearing reports of the alien fleets encroaching on Earth's borders, that doubt turned to resolve. Humans would not go down without a fight. On the day of the counter-offensive, Kara stood at the helm of one of Earth's newly constructed warships, staring out into the cold vacuum of space. The view was breathtaking. The stars stretched endlessly before her, but beyond them, an alien armada hovered, ready to strike. Her heart pounded as she looked at the sleek black ships of Earth's fleet, knowing that what was about to happen would determine the future of humanity. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing enemies that had crushed entire civilizations without a second thought. But something in her gut told her that humanity's greatest strength was its heart. "Captain, we're ready," came a voice through her comms. Kara nodded, her voice steady. "We move out in 30 minutes. No turning back." The battle was set to begin. Meanwhile, back in the council chambers, the leaders of the galaxy were still pondering Kara's words. They had underestimated humanity, but now they found themselves in a position of uncertainty. The fleets were ready to strike, but they were not sure what to expect. If humans truly had something more than what their technology suggested, then this war could take an unexpected turn. Kular, the Ixal leader, was one of the first to voice his concerns. "We underestimated them. They've begun to mobilize their forces. This could become more than just a simple extermination." Vira, the crystalline being, agreed, her voice cold and calculating. "We may need to rethink our approach. If Earth has truly united in defense, this could be a much harder conquest than we anticipated." But even in the face of uncertainty, many of the council members were resolute. The Kryk's leader, Lord Kryk, was still confident. No matter what they bring, they're still humans. Their resources are limited. We have fleets. We have the technology. They cannot win. Despite the growing doubt, the decision was made. The alien fleets would attack, and humanity would fall. Back on Earth, the first wave of attacks began. The space surrounding the planet erupted with fire as Earth's warships launched their first volleys of energy blasts. The enemy was vast, but humanity's response was fierce and swift. The once derided human ships cut through the alien fleets with precision, their weapons designed with the ingenuity only humans could bring to the table. The galaxy's might was strong, but humanity's fury was unmatched. As the battle raged on, Kara stood at the bridge of her ship, watching the battle unfold. It was chaotic, fast-paced, and brutal. But something deep inside her told her that this was humanity's moment. They were no longer just a curiosity. They were a force. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council," one of her officers reported. Kara's heart skipped a beat. She knew this was the moment. The Council would have no choice but to respond to the chaos Earth was causing. She glanced at the screen, her eyes narrowing as the transmission opened. The face of Kular appeared, his expression hard and cold. "You're making a mistake, Kara Thompson," Kular said, his voice dripping with disdain. "This war is not yours to win. You are merely delaying the inevitable." Kara met his gaze with a calm, unwavering stare. "We'll see about that." As the transmission ended, Kara turned to her crew. "Prepare for the next phase. We're not stopping until Earth stands victorious." And so, the storm had truly begun. The galaxy had laughed at humanity, but now it was humanity's turn to show the universe that they were not to be underestimated. The battle for Earth raged on in space. The alien fleets, vast and relentless, continued to hammer down on humanity's defenses. Their ships, each a monumental mass of firepower, unleashed wave after wave of destruction. Yet, despite the overwhelming numbers and advanced technology, humanity's response was fierce and unpredictable. The human warships, though smaller and less technologically advanced, fought with a passion that caught the galaxy off guard. Kara Thompson stood at the helm of the flagship, the Indomitable, a newly commissioned human warship that had been designed specifically for this conflict. Her knuckles were white as she gripped the control panel. She could hear the explosions outside, the hum of the engines, and the buzz of activity all around her. Her crew worked efficiently, firing back at the alien ships with everything they had. Yet the aliens were relentless. The sky was filled with the sounds of battle, energy blasts, debris, and the deafening silence of the void between the stars. Kara's face was grim as she stared at the view screen, watching the alien ships move with terrifying precision. The massive fleet was closing in on Earth, and the humans, though brave, were still outnumbered and outgunned. But what the aliens didn't count on was humanity's resilience. "Captain, we've received reinforcements from the other fleets," her communications officer called out from behind her. Kara didn't turn away from the view screen. "Good. Keep them coming." At that moment, the Indomitable rocked with another powerful blast. The shields shimmered, holding for a moment before they began to crack under the force. She could feel the ship shudder, but she remained steady. There was no time for fear now. "We're holding them off, Captain," one of the officers reported. "But their numbers are overwhelming. We need to strike back, or we'll be overwhelmed." Kara knew that she had to make a decision, and she had to make it fast. The battle was no longer just about fighting the aliens. It was about showing them that humanity would not kneel. She couldn't let them believe that their tactics would win. "Prepare for the next phase," Kara ordered. "We're taking the fight to them." With that, the crew sprang into action. The Indomitable turned sharply, leaving the main line of defense and heading toward the heart of the alien fleet. It was a gamble. If they failed, Earth would be defenseless. But Kara was confident. Humans had always fought against impossible odds. This would not be the day they gave up. As they maneuvered toward the center of the enemy fleet, a new weapon, a secret project humanity had been working on, came online. It was a long-range energy cannon designed to deliver a concentrated blast of power unlike anything the galaxy had seen. The aliens had been caught off guard by this new weapon. It was Earth's last hope, if it worked. Kara gave the order. "Fire." The ship's main cannon charged, and with a deafening blast, a beam of pure energy shot out, tearing through space. The alien ships in its path were caught in the blast, and entire formations were obliterated in a single strike. The shockwave rippled through the galaxy, shaking the aliens to their core. The crew of the Indomitable cheered as the view screen showed the destruction they had caused. For a brief moment, it seemed as if humanity might have found the edge they needed, but Kara knew better than to celebrate too soon. "We've made a dent, but we need more," she said, her voice calm but commanding. "Prepare for another round of fire. This is just the beginning." As the battle continued, something began to shift within the alien fleet. The once confident alien commanders, who had thought of humanity as nothing more than a nuisance, were beginning to rethink their strategy. The reports they were receiving from their front lines spoke of an unexpected force. Humans were fighting back with an intensity that none of them had anticipated. "Lord Crake, it's impossible," one of the alien commanders stammered over the comms. "The humans, they've destroyed several of our ships with some sort of new weapon. It's unlike anything we've encountered." Krak's eyes narrowed as he listened to the report. "They're resourceful, but we will crush them all the same." Back on Earth, Kara received word that the entire human resistance movement had begun to unite under a single banner. The people of Earth had always been divided. Different nations, different ideologies, different ways of life. But the threat of extinction had a way of uniting even the most stubborn of people. Now, soldiers from every country, scientists from every field, and engineers from every continent were working together as one force. The battle for Earth had become the battle for all of humanity. Yet, despite the unity, the war was far from over. The aliens' advantage in numbers and firepower still loomed large. But humanity had one thing the aliens could not comprehend: a will to survive. This was not just about protecting a planet or a race. It was about fighting for the future of everything that humanity had built. Its cultures, its history, and its place in the galaxy. Kara had seen the faces of her fellow soldiers. They were tired, some wounded, others holding on by sheer willpower. But they had never been more determined. And neither had she. In the distance, the remaining alien ships were regrouping, preparing for a counterattack. They were not done yet. They had been forced to adjust their tactics, but they had not lost hope. They still believed that humanity would fall, and they would push forward with everything they had to crush Earth once and for all. But Kara knew that the tide was turning. Humanity had proven that they could fight, and now it was time to prove they could win. Ready for the final push, Kara asked her crew, turning toward them with a resolute look. "We're ready, Captain," came the unified response. And as the battle escalated, the galaxy would soon realize that humanity was far from the easy target they had once thought. This war would not end in their defeat, it would end in victory. The war for Earth was far from over, but with each passing moment, humanity was showing that they were not the prey. They were the predators. The battlefield had changed in ways that no one could have predicted. The aliens, though massive in number and technology, were struggling to understand the full scope of humanity's resilience. Kara Thompson had seen it with her own eyes. The humanity she had once known as weak, divided, and helpless now stood tall as the most formidable force in the galaxy. The tide had indeed begun to turn, but the battle was far from over. The aliens, sensing the shift in the balance of power, were preparing for their most devastating assault yet. Kara stood at the center of the war room aboard the Indomitable. She was no longer just a captain. She was the symbol of humanity's defiance. The crew around her worked swiftly, reading through incoming reports and adjusting their strategies. Yet the weight of the moment bore heavily on her shoulders. The enemy was relentless, and while they had made progress, they were far from breaking. "Captain," said Lieutenant Rourke, the operations officer, his voice breaking through the tension in the room. "We've received word from our outer fleet. The aliens are massing for one final offensive. They intend to wipe us out in one strike." The words hit Kara like a wave. She could feel the air thicken as the reality of the situation settled in. This was the moment where humanity's future would be decided. If they failed now, Earth would fall, and their existence would be erased from the stars forever. "What's our status?" Kara asked, her voice steady, but filled with the gravity of the situation. "We've lost several ships, Captain, but we're holding strong," Lieutenant Rourke reported, his eyes scanning the data in front of him. "The new weapon we've developed is working, but it's not enough to take down their entire fleet. We need something bigger, something more daring." Kara's mind raced. She knew the only way to win was to play the game the aliens never expected. Humanity had always been the underdog, but now they had one thing the aliens could not predict: a desperation to survive. "Prepare the Phoenix strike," Kara said with finality, turning to her senior strategist, Commander Callista. Commander Callista, who had been leading the human resistance's tactical operations, raised an eyebrow. "Captain, are you sure? The Phoenix strike is a last resort. If we go through with this, we'll risk everything." Kara locked eyes with Callista, her gaze unyielding. "We've got no choice. It's time we show them that humanity doesn't just fight back. We turn the tables." The Phoenix strike was a top-secret operation, developed in the aftermath of their most devastating losses. It was humanity's final gambit, a high-risk maneuver that could either end the war in victory or spell their complete destruction. The strike involved an all-out assault on the alien command ship, using the Indomitable and its allied fleet as decoys to draw the aliens into a trap. The final objective: to strike at the heart of the alien fleet and cripple their command structure. "We'll need the element of surprise," Callista said, knowing how crucial timing was. "The aliens will expect a retreat, but they won't expect us to launch such a daring attack. We'll hit them when they think they've won." Kara nodded. "And we'll give them a show they'll never forget." The Indomitable and its allied ships moved into position, their hulls creaking under the strain of the upcoming battle. Kara stood in front of the massive view screen, watching the fleet as it aligned for the final strike. Her crew was ready, their hearts beating with a shared purpose. She could feel the electricity in the air, the anticipation of what was to come. "Coordinates set, Captain," Rourke reported. "We're ready to engage." Kara's hand hovered over the console. This was it, the moment of truth. She glanced around the room at her crew, each face determined, willing to risk everything for the survival of their people. "On my mark," Kara said, her voice a commanding whisper. 3, 2, 1, mark. With a roar of engines, the human fleet surged forward, cutting through the darkness of space at full speed. The alien fleet, expecting a retreat, was taken completely by surprise. Their formation splintered as the humans suddenly turned on them, charging into their midst. "Activate the Phoenix cannon," Kara ordered, her eyes fixed on the view screen. The weapon, a massive energy disruptor, came online, and the ship's entire hull vibrated as the cannon charged. The first blast tore through the alien fleet's outer defense, sending ripples of destruction across their formation. But the aliens were no slouches. They quickly regrouped, retaliating with fury. Laser beams and plasma blasts filled the void, lighting up the darkness like fireworks. "Focus on their command ship," Kara shouted. "We take that down, and the fleet will fall apart." With a coordinated attack from every ship in the fleet, they focused their firepower on the alien flagship. The alien fleet's command ship, a massive structure that radiated a menacing aura, became the focal point of the battle. Explosions rocked the area as the humans fired their weapons with precision, every shot meant to break the backbone of the alien command. But the alien fleet was relentless. As the Indomitable continued to lead the charge, another wave of alien ships descended upon them, trying to tear the human fleet apart. Kara could feel the heat of the blast wave as it slammed into her ship's shields. "We're holding, Captain," Rourke reported, though his voice was tight with stress. "But we need to end this now." The human fleet's coordinated attack seemed to have momentarily overwhelmed the alien forces, but it was far from a victory. The aliens were regrouping, sending reinforcements from their hidden fleet. Kara clenched her fists. "This battle isn't over, but we're giving them everything we have." Just as the aliens seemed ready to counterattack, an unexpected turn of events occurred. The Phoenix strike had given humanity the advantage it needed. The alien command ship, after taking sustained hits from the Indomitable and its allies, began to lose its power. The warships, no longer receiving orders from the Central Command, began to break ranks. It was the beginning of the end. As the battle continued to rage across the vastness of space, a shift occurred that was so subtle, so unexpected, that even the most seasoned war veterans aboard the Indomitable were caught off guard. The alien forces, once confident in their overwhelming might, had begun to falter. The loss of their command ship had sent shockwaves through their ranks, causing confusion and disarray among their fleet. For the first time, the once unshakable alien empire was showing signs of weakness. Kara Thompson stood before the tactical display, watching in silence as the alien fleet faltered. She knew the danger wasn't over yet. The remaining ships were still formidable, but humanity had taken the upper hand. She had always believed that humans had something the aliens didn't: a relentless drive to survive, to innovate, and to never give up, no matter how bleak the situation seemed. Now that belief was being proven true in ways no one could have predicted. "Captain," Lieutenant Rourke's voice broke her concentration. "We've intercepted a transmission from the remaining alien commanders. They're calling for reinforcements from their homeworld. They're not finished yet." The weight of Rourke's words hit her hard. The aliens weren't going to go down easily. They had already shown how resourceful they were. Despite their loss of command, they had deep reserves of power. Reinforcements from their homeworld could tip the scales back in their favor. "They're desperate," Kara said, her voice steady but laced with concern. "They know if they don't win here, it's over for them. We need to finish this now before those reinforcements arrive." As if to punctuate her words, a massive alien warship appeared on the edge of the battlefield. It was unlike anything Kara had seen before. Sleek and deadly, it seemed to hum with an unnatural energy. The aliens were calling in their final trump card. "Callista, get me the ship's specs," Kara ordered, her eyes never leaving the view screen. We need to know what we're dealing with. Commander Callista worked swiftly at her console, her fingers flying across the keys. It's their flagship, the HFY Despair. It's been retrofitted with an experimental shield that can withstand almost anything we've got. But it's not invincible. We just need to find its weak spot. Kara's mind raced. The HFY Despair could easily turn the tide of the battle if they didn't act fast. But the weakness Callista spoke of was their only hope. With a weapon like that, the alien forces could wipe out the rest of humanity's fleet in a matter of minutes. They had no time to waste. We can't let it get close, Kara said, her voice resolute. Rourke, activate the Phoenix cannon again. Give them everything we've got. Callista, find that weak spot. We need to end this now. The crew sprang into action. The Indomitable maneuvered sharply, positioning itself to face the oncoming alien flagship. The remaining human ships fell into formation, ready to support the final assault. Kara could feel the tension in the air, a sense of urgency that no one could escape. The entire fate of humanity hinged on this moment. On the view screen, the HFY Despair loomed larger, its ominous shape casting a shadow over the battlefield. Kara's heart raced, her fingers gripping the armrests of her chair. The alien warship seemed impenetrable, its surface gleaming with energy shields. The Indomitable's Phoenix cannon had already done significant damage, but it hadn't been enough to breach the alien flagship's defenses. Ready the cannon, Kara ordered. This is it. The cannon powered up, a low hum filling the ship as the energy gathered in its core. The crew held their breath, waiting for the moment when it would unleash. Kara's mind flashed back to the first day. She stood on the Indomitable, the ship that had become their symbol of defiance. She remembered the fear, the uncertainty, the disbelief that humanity could stand against the galaxy's might. Now, as the cannon charged, she knew that humanity's strength was not in its technology, nor in its numbers. It was in its heart. Firing in 3, 2, 1. Fire, Kara commanded. The beam erupted from the cannon, a blinding column of energy that streaked across the battlefield. It collided with the HFY Despair, sending shockwaves through the void. The alien ship shuddered as its shield flared under the intensity of the blast. For a brief moment, it seemed like the Phoenix cannon would be absorbed. But then, something remarkable happened. The shield cracked. Kara couldn't believe her eyes. It was a breakthrough. The HFY Despair's shields were failing. The Phoenix cannon had found its mark. Hit it again, Kara shouted, urgency in her voice. We've got it. Rourke, focus all fire on that weak spot. The crew worked together like a well-oiled machine. The Indomitable fired another blast from the cannon, followed by coordinated strikes from the Allied ships. Each blast hit the exposed weak spot on the alien flagship. The HFY Despair began to break apart, its shields finally failing under the relentless assault. Captain, they're retreating. Lieutenant Rourke called out, a note of disbelief in his voice. The alien flagship, battered and broken, began to retreat, its engines struggling to maintain power. The remaining alien forces, witnessing the destruction of their greatest weapon, hesitated. The tide had turned. The human fleet pressed forward, launching one final decisive attack. The aliens, now realizing that their empire was crumbling, made one last attempt to flee, but it was too late. The remnants of their forces scattered, broken and leaderless. We did it, Commander Callista said, a quiet awe in her voice. Kara stood tall, her gaze fixed on the fading alien fleet. She could hardly believe it, but the victory was theirs. Humanity had fought back against impossible odds, and they had won. But the war was far from over. The galaxy would never forget the day humanity rose from the ashes of defeat and turned the tide of a war that seemed unwinnable. Kara knew one thing for sure. The galaxy had underestimated them. And now, they would never make that mistake again.